we're going to be considering how the Bhagavad Gita works as a blueprint for your spiritual path. And I'm going to try to condense what takes about 6 months in the Kriya Yoga Apprenticeship Program into 2 hours. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the basic principles. That way, if you get Roy's book, The Eternal Way, you will understand how to read it and what he's getting at within this text. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is probably one of the holiest books in the world. And it is written as a story about a war. Many people imagine that the story in the Bhagavad Gita is a historical event. Maybe it is, I don't know. But for the yogi's purpose, it's meant to be read as an allegory. And that means that it's full of symbolism for the idea of the battle is a symbol for the yogic path. And I think it's really important to recognize that the yogic path is described as a battle. Because, as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of people think that once they start meditating or they find their spiritual tradition or their spiritual teacher, that after that, everything's just going to be fine. Nothing's ever going to go wrong again. And they're just going to be released into, a land of cupcakes and unicorns, and that's all it's going to be. But if we look at one of the oldest texts as it relates to yoga, it's described as a battle. And many of you know who've tried to just start meditating or even just make a change in your life, there's a struggle involved. And this is kind of the crux of the spiritual path. Now, there are two main characters in this story, Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna represents me and you, the people who are meditating, the people who are studying yoga, who want to wake up and figure out what we are as spirit. Krishna represents, many people say God, but supreme consciousness, the infinite, the free state of consciousness. And there's this dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna where Krishna is essentially explaining to Arjuna how this is done, what to expect. And the battlefield itself, it's not something outside of us. The battlefield is our inner state of consciousness. And when you start to read the Bhagavad Gita in that way, you will understand that really what we're doing from a yogic perspective is just working to clean up our inner state of consciousness, to align it with clearer energies, purer energies, more uplifting sattvic energies. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with those things which are not pure or not sattvic. Remember, in yoga, this world exists for experience and freedom. So the people who are just wanting experience, no problem. They're fulfilling the role of the world. But for yogis, the purpose is to engage in the practice directed towards freedom. That's why we do this. Now, the first chapter, we're going to focus on chapter 1 and 2 because chapter 1 sets the stage, and chapter 2 is said to be the heart of the Gita, because within chapter 2 is essentially the philosophy that a yogi needs to understand. Everything after that is more of an explanation or an exposition on what we've discussed. Okay, so it begins, the yoga of the despondency of Arjuna. This is how the Bhagavad Gita begins. The first chapter is called the yoga of the despondency of Arjuna. Now, the yoga of the despondency of Arjuna, that tells you that at the very beginning, despondency and struggle is part of the process because it's a type of yoga. The first sutra reads, assembled in Dharmakshatra and Kurukshatra, desirous to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, O Sanjaya? So this is a question being asked, and the question is attributed to Dhritarashtra. And that term from this yogic Kriya Yoga perspective of our inner state of consciousness is said to be the deluded mind, the mind that does not understand, the mind that is still confused. So deluded mind asks, assembled in this field, about to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? So it immediately tells you that there is a division in the field, deluded mind and the sons of deluded mind, all right? And the sons of Pandu. The sons of Pandu are the virtuous qualities that we have. So it's pointing out that human nature has a deluded quality and the sons of the deluded qualities, but there is also virtuous qualities. And this is directed to O Sanjaya. And Sanjaya is the part of us which is introspective discrimination. Introspective discrimination. Now, so Sanjaya, introspective discrimination, replies to the deluded mind. Seeing the army of the sons of Pandu ready for battle, King Duryodhana approached his teacher Drona and spoke these words. This is why it's going to take a while, because I have to tell you what each of these names mean. So, aware of the virtuous qualities, which are the sons of Pandu, that they were fully prepared to confront and eliminate the self-serving tendencies and characteristics, passionate desire. So we see that deluded mind, the sons of deluded mind, are self-serving tendencies, passionate desires, that the teacher of these spoke. And the teacher of the deluded mind are the impressions from the past, the storehouse of memories, that which supports the karmic condition, the conditioned material lifestyle. Now, this is important because when we're living through a deluded mind, we're referencing life based on our past experiences, our conditioning, our tendencies, the things we like, the things that we don't like. So we have to know that this is kind of going on inside of us. And it continues, behold, O teacher, this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, arrayed by the son of Drupada, who is wise because of your instruction. And then to translate this, O storehouse of memories, that's the teacher, see the great assemblage of the virtuous qualities, born of pure intelligence, which are directed by the inner light, supported by knowledge based on experience. So what we're being shown here is that one side of the battlefield are the virtuous qualities that we all possess, the intelligence that we all possess, the inner light that we all possess, the knowledge that we all possess, which can help us. Here are the heroes, mighty archers. In battle, they're equal to Bhima, Arjuna, Yuyudhana, and Virata, and the great warrior Drupada. So here are the heroic qualities, those things that we possess, skillful in action. In any contest, they are equal to innate strength and life force control, fiery willpower, faith-based determination, and equanimity in all circumstances. So it's saying that the virtuous qualities that we possess are the innate strength, life force control, fiery willpower, the ability to rise above our difficult states of consciousness, faith-based determination, and equanimity in all circumstances. These are qualities that are within us. We just have to choose to give awareness to that side of our being. And he goes on, Drishtaketu, Chaitanya, the king of Kashi, known for valor, Purujit, Kuntiboja, Saibya, who is strong among them. And these are restraint, which removes all obstacles, higher intelligence, enthusiasm, mastery of mental and sensory impulses, peace and satisfaction when overcoming obstacles, and concentrated discipline giving superior strength. And the powerful Udamanyu, valorous, Uttamaljas, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi, all of them are indeed great warriors. And that is dispassion, bravery in actions, happiness arising from kindness, and the enlivening power of Kundalini expressing through the chakras. All of them are extremely effective. So Sanjaya, introspective intuition, is telling the deluded mind, here's one side of the battlefield. And these are all the supportive side of us for our spiritual practice. And then he goes on, know now our own distinguished warriors, O highest of the twice born. I describe the leaders by their proper names. Yourself, deluded mind, Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, Asvataman, who is victorious in battle, Vikarna, and also the sons of Somadatta. So on the other side of this confrontation is what? Memories of experiences which support change and transformation. The strong sense of individuality, worldliness, which is attached to superficial and transient things and circumstances, hatred or strong dislike and inconstancy, and many other heroes willing to risk their lives for my sake, with various weapons at their command and all of them skilled in battle, and many other psychological tendencies with addictive drives to protect and support strong desire, with their many ways of expressing and all of them effective in their actions. Our army, guarded by Bhishma, is sufficient. The army guarded by Bhima is insufficient. So this conversation between deluded mind and intuitive introspection says the psychological tendencies and drives, which are defended by a strong sense of individuality, are sufficient to meet this challenge. The virtuous qualities defended by life force control are insufficient. And if you think about it, that's what happens when we kind of begin on the spiritual path. We see what's possible. We know we have inner strength, but we say, yeah, but you know what? I kind of like where I am. I like this deluded state. And so then the army of delusion kind of kicks into gear, and that's when a lot of people don't really do what they need to do and they don't make much progress. But it goes on, therefore, during the progress of this contest, let each of you be in your assigned place, protect Bhishma. So in this contest about to begin, let each of you play your specific role, protect individualized awareness. And there's an exclamation point there, which means that it is indicating that once you step on the spiritual path, you have to at first overcome that sort of tenacious feeling like you must be an individual. You know, protect your individual nature, protect your personality. And you can't do that. That's not going to work in this contest. So to encourage and give happiness to Duryodhana, the aged Kuru, Bhishma, roaring like a lion, powerfully blew his conch. So to rally the psychological tendencies and drives, and to stimulate and nurture the desire to prevail, individualized self-sense aroused the vital forces and stirred and energized the senses. So suddenly the conch horns, kettle drums, cymbals, small drums, and trumpets all tumultuously sounded. So immediately, the intensity of stimulated desires and energized senses became more pronounced. Now, this is important because, I mean, maybe you don't have this issue, but maybe it happens when, it depends on where you are. But when you start to do something positive for yourself, spiritually speaking, it's like all of a sudden you can become overwhelmed with all these desires, all these things. Yeah, but what about that? You start making excuses for yourself. And this is describing that process, that is a natural part of the process. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just saying, this is what's going to happen as soon as you step on that battlefield to start clearing up your consciousness, spiritually speaking. However, we have to remember there is another side to this, battle. So then, standing in the great chariot, yoked to white horses, Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the son of Pandu, also sounded their glorious horns. So once this kind of distraction comes up, then the indwelling spirit of God that commands the senses and the soul's ardent aspiration to prevail also manifests the signs of power. Krishna sounded his Panchajanya. Arjuna sounded his Devadatta. Bhima of mighty deeds blew the great horn of Poundra. So the Spirit of God manifested as the sound Om, the sound of the prana frequencies in the lumbar chakra resounded, also the dorsal chakra. So what this is saying is that even though you have all these drives and you have all these addictions and psychological things coming up, one of the ways to rise above that is to focus on the inner energy of the chakras. And that can be from feeling it, like we described the other day, or by learning to listen and hear the Om vibration and the inner sounds. By doing that, it counteracts all these difficult qualities. That's why it's important to know how to feel the areas of the chakras and to listen to that sound. Yudhishthira blew Ananta Vijaya. Nakula and Sahadeva sounded Sugosha and Manipushpaka. The prana frequencies at the cervical chakra and at the sacral and base chakras also manifested. The king of Kashi, the supreme archer, and Sikandan, the great warrior, Drishtadyumna, Virata, and Satyaki, the invincible. So by listening to and feeling these inner frequencies of the chakras, what comes from that? Enthusiasm, spirituality, self-control, the virtue of equanimity, and invincible truth consciousness. These were enlivened and manifested. So by learning to direct your awareness within, you begin to cultivate these higher qualities. Drupada and the sons of Draupadi and the sons of Subhadra, O Lord of the earth, they all sounded their respective horns. Concentrated pure love, omniscience, Kundalini Shakti's chakra manifestations, and their qualities all became expressive. So essentially, what we're seeing here is in the battle, we are becoming aware of the side that wants to keep you locked into feeling like you are just a small, limited person who's going to suffer. Nothing can change. You're just going to be born and die, and that's it. And on the other hand, there's this eternal, infinite expression of spirit, which you can tap into and feel physically through the areas of the chakras, and you can listen to with inner hearing. And by doing that, you are supporting and sustaining that ability to rise above the small sense of self, the ability to rise into an omniscient state of consciousness. And that is why the saints and sages, when they look out on the world and they talk about the world, they're at peace and they can see things from a higher perspective because they are not defined by all these limiting factors. And that's what we're aiming to do with this whole process. Now, this goes on for a while, this description of both of these sides. And again, please get this book if you can to help kind of encourage your own comprehension of it. This goes on for a while. And then Arjuna speaks. So then Arjuna spoke these words to Krishna. Imperishable one, put my chariot between the two armies, so that I must see whom I must fight. So you, as the spiritual aspirant, as Arjuna, you have to look at both sides of the battlefield to know what you're up against and to know who's supporting you. And so in this portion of the Gita, Arjuna, you, is saying, all right, let's look out and see what is the state of affairs that I have to deal with here. And you have to be able to do that. If you just go into it blindly and you don't really take into consideration what you may have to come up against and what strengths you have, you're going to stumble through and you're probably just going to get killed, spiritually speaking. So we want you to, Krishna puts the chariot in between the two sides so that Arjuna can intelligently know what he's going to do. So then he says, I now behold those who are assembled, eager and willing to serve the material-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So all of the tendencies and actions resulting from mental delusion, which are obstacles to spiritual growth and illumination of consciousness, I now clearly see them. I know what they are. And then Sanjaya said, thus directed by Arjuna, Krishna, driving the most magnificent chariot, placed it between the two armies. In front of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other leaders, Krishna said, Arjuna, behold the Kurus assembled here. The Kurus are those negative qualities that are going to get in your way. So Arjuna looks, and this is where it gets interesting. I find this part of the text fun. So what did Arjuna see? Arjuna saw fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, and their friends standing there. he saw fathers-in-law and companions in both armies, when he saw all these kinsmen thus arrayed, overcome with pity and sadness, impelled by excessive compassion, Arjuna said, "O Krishna, having seen my own kinsmen desiring to fight, my limbs grow limp, my mouth becomes dry, my body trembles, my hair stands on end, my bow slips from my hand, my skin burns as with fever. I am unable to stand firm, my mind wavers." Now, that list of fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, this is important because when you first begin on the spiritual path and you recognize what you have to do to change, you then realize that all these qualities which made you feel like a small little individual person, they're comfortable for you. They're what you know. You feel, even though they're not good for you spiritually speaking in the long term, you don't really want to change because you're like, well, they made me what I am. This quirk that I have, this aversion, this, I really like this. I don't really like that. Like, you define yourself through those things. And because that's what you define yourself through, it feels scary to want to let go of it because you're comfortable with it. So the fathers, the grandfathers, the teachers, the maternal uncles, that's just a way of saying that these qualities which support feeling like a small little individual, you've just been around them for so long that it's hard to want to get away from them because you don't know anything else, right? So Arjuna sees this and his mouth becomes dry, his bow falls from his hand or begins to slip from his hand. And the bow represents the ability to shoot for a goal, to shoot for something greater, but it also represents the upright posture, the ability to sit in meditation and go within. But Arjuna is not done yet. He says, "I perceive omens of misfortune, O Krishna, nor can I see any good result from slaying my kinsmen. I do not desire victory, nor royal status, nor pleasure. What is the value of such self-mastery and self-realization for us? Enjoyment or life itself? Those for whose sake we desire rulership, enjoyments, and pleasures are arrayed here before us, having renounced their lives." Anyway, this goes on for a while. And this, I'm not going to read it all because it's just more of the same thing. And what he's doing there is just making excuses, right? And, you guys made an effort to come here. I mean, there are people from all over the United States. You drove, you took planes, you rented houses. So I'm not necessarily thinking you are the type that are going to make excuses. But maybe you've seen people who you try to introduce them to meditation or they ask you about it and you give them the information and then they just come up with one excuse after the other about why they can't do it. Well, that's sort of the state of Arjuna here, where he sees probably going to be good for me, but you know what? I don't really want to change that much. And so he just lists one excuse after the other. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. You can read this on your own. But then it resolves towards the end of the chapter. "Alas, we are resolved to perform unrighteously because we are willing to slay our own kinsmen because of greed for our own happiness." And if you think about it, don't you know people who, when you say things like, "I need time alone to meditate," or "I need to go on a retreat by myself," like, that's selfish. Why don't you stay with us and do these things? Or, "I want to become a vegetarian." Like, well, we eat meat and you're just being rude. It's like that. That's sort of what we're describing here. So Arjuna is seeing that and he's starting to agree with those people that think that when you make choices that are going to be good for you, that's a selfish choice, when really it's not. There's no maliciousness involved there. "I would therefore be happier if the sons of Dhritarashtra, armed with their weapons, should slay me, unresisting and weaponless." Having thus spoken, in the midst of the battlefield, throwing down his bow and his arrows, Arjuna sank down on the seat of his chariot, his heart overwhelmed with sorrow. So that's the beginning of your spiritual path. All right. That's chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, the despondency of Arjuna, which means if you went through that or you're going through that, that's just part of it. It's just part of the path.